At 11 minutes past 10 on a Tuesday night, the smartwatch on the wrist of a woman named Diane Foster recorded her heart rate spike, stutter, and then stop. According to her husband, at that exact moment, Diane was alive and asleep beside him. One of them was lying. The watch was not. This is the story of a death that everyone at first agreed was a tragic accident, and of the small piece of technology strapped to a wrist that quietly refused to let the lie survive. The call came in just after 6 the following morning. A man's voice, shaking, telling the dispatcher that his wife had fallen down the stairs in the night and that she was not breathing. Paramedics raced to the address, but there was nothing left for them to do. Diane Foster was 41 years old, a high school teacher, well-liked, with no enemies anyone could name. She was found at the bottom of the staircase in her own home, and the scene told a simple, terrible story. A fall in the dark, a broken neck, a tragic accident. Her husband, Greg Foster, told police he had woken to find her gone from bed, searched the house, and discovered her at the foot of the stairs. He was distraught. He was cooperative. And for the first day, no one had any reason to doubt a single word he said. The medical examiner began the routine autopsy, expecting to confirm what everyone assumed, that Diane had died from a fall. But almost immediately, something did not fit. The injuries on her body were not quite the injuries a staircase leaves behind. There were bruises on her arms, the kind made by hands, not by stairs. And the angle of the fatal injury was wrong, as though the fall had not happened the way it was described. The examiner stopped and quietly flagged the case for the police. Detective Alan Reyes was assigned to take a second look. He did not want to believe that a grieving husband was a killer, but he had learned over 20 years that the people closest to a victim are the ones who deserve the hardest questions. He started where every modern investigation now begins, not with footprints or fingerprints, but with data. Phones, computers, cars, and the quiet little devices people wear without thinking, that record far more than anyone ever realizes. Diane had worn a smartwatch every single day. She used it to track her runs, her sleep, and her heart. And that watch, now sitting in an evidence bag, had been recording faithfully through the entire night that she died. When the forensic team pulled the data, the timeline it revealed was devastating. Diane's heart had not stopped at 6 in the morning when Greg said he found her. It had spiked violently and then flatlined at 11 minutes past 10 the night before. That was nearly 8 hours earlier than Greg's story. 8 hours during which he claimed his wife had been alive and asleep beside him. The watch said she had been dead since the night before. Someone had waited until morning to make the call, and the watch recorded more than her heart. Its motion sensors showed a sudden, violent movement at 11 past 10, and then nothing. No steps, no turning in sleep, not the gentle motion of a living body, just stillness for 8 long hours. Reyes went back to the staircase with fresh eyes. This time, the forensics team found what a quick first glance had missed. Faint marks on the floor of the upstairs hallway, consistent with a body being dragged toward the top of the stairs. The accident, it was becoming clear, had been staged. Diane had not fallen. She had been killed somewhere else in that house and then placed at the bottom of the stairs to tell a story that the evidence simply would not support. But a staged scene is not a confession. Reyes needed to understand the man at the center of it, so he began, quietly and carefully, to pull apart the life of Greg Foster, the grieving husband that everyone felt so sorry for. On the surface, it had looked like an ordinary marriage, but underneath, the cracks were everywhere. Greg was deep in debt, gambling away money the couple did not have. And just 4 months earlier, he had taken out a large life insurance policy on his wife. The policy would pay nearly $1 million in the event of Diane's accidental death. Accidental being the key word. A murder would pay nothing at all, but a fall down the stairs in the night would pay everything. Then there was his phone. Investigators obtained a warrant and pulled its entire history, and what they found turned suspicion into something much colder. In the weeks before Diane died, Greg had been searching the internet. He had searched how long a body takes to cool. He had searched whether a fall can break a neck. He had searched what injuries look like after a staircase accident. He had been studying, methodically, how to get away with exactly what he had done. He had even searched how accurate smartwatches really are. The one thing he never understood was the answer: accurate enough. Accurate enough to record the precise moment his wife's heart stopped, and to prove that he had lied about every hour after. Reyes pulled the home's other smart devices next: a doorbell camera, a thermostat, a voice assistant, each one a silent witness, and together they began to fill in the hours that Greg had tried so carefully to erase. The doorbell camera showed no intruder, no stranger, no one at all entering or leaving the house that night. Whatever had happened to Diane had happened inside, with only one other person present: her husband. The home's smart speaker had logged a command at 9 minutes past 10 that night. Greg had asked it to turn up the music. 2 minutes before, Diane's heart stopped, loud enough perhaps to cover a sound that he did not want the neighbors to hear. Piece by piece, the digital trail closed around him. The insurance, the debt, the searches, the watch, the cameras. Every device in that modern connected home had been quietly testifying against the very man who lived inside it. Reyes brought Greg Foster in for questioning. For hours, Greg held to his story. His wife had fallen. He had found her in the morning. He had done nothing wrong. He was calm and rehearsed and almost convincing. Then Reyes laid the watch data on the table. The heart rate graph, the flatline at 11 past 10, the 8 hours of stillness. And he asked the only question that truly mattered. If Diane died at 10, why did you not call until 6? Greg had no answer. He had built his entire story on the assumption that no one could ever know the exact moment his wife had died. He had not counted on the watch, and as the silence stretched on, his careful calm finally began to break. He did not confess that day, but he did not need to. The case the detectives had built did not rest on a confession. It rested on data, cold and precise and impossible to argue with, from a dozen devices that could not be intimidated or bought. At trial, the prosecution did something that juries had rarely seen. They put a smartwatch at the very center of a murder case. They showed the jury the graph of Diane's final heartbeat, the exact second it stopped, and the lie that it exposed. The defense argued the technology was unreliable, that a watch could not be trusted to time a death. But the data was consistent across every device: the motion, the heart rate, the speaker, the camera. They all told the same story, and the story was murder. It took the jury less than a day. Greg Foster was found guilty of the murder of his wife and sentenced to life in prison. The accident that was supposed to pay him a fortune had instead cost him absolutely everything. Diane Foster was remembered by her students, her family, and her friends, not as a case file or a headline, but as the teacher who stayed late, who believed in them, who deserved so much better than the man she had trusted. Her killer had been careful. He had thought of the body, the scene, the story, and the timing. He had thought of everything that a person could think of, inside a house that was quietly full of machines that were thinking too. We wear them now without a second thought. On our wrists, on our walls, in our pockets. Quiet witnesses, counting our steps and our heartbeats, remembering what we say and when we move. We rarely stop to ask what they know. Greg Foster never asked either. And in the end, the smallest of them, a single watch on a wrist, remembered the one moment that he needed the whole world to forget. The exact second that Diane Foster's heart beat for the very last time.